Hi guys, it's Sherry. Today we are going to be covering a jar. I have my Cernit clay already rolled out to my middle section of my pasta machine, and we are going to be using this transfer paper. I absolutely love this transfer paper. I think it is wonderful. So that is what we are going to be using. My jar is a square of 4 sides, so I will be using all 4 of these papers. So each side will have a beautiful skull on it, or skeleton I should say. I got these papers from Love and Light Gallery. Look at how beautiful these are. Are they not gorgeous? This is going to be such an awesome jar. I'm super excited about this. So the first thing that we are going to do is we have to put our paper onto our clay. Now I am going to have to trim up this paper I'm going to have to trim up the clay, I should say, when we put it on our jar. But I don't want to, because you can see that the paper's a little bit bigger. I don't want to actually cut my clay before I do that, for the simple fact that I want to make sure that everything fits perfect. So having it a little bit bigger and trimming it up is more ideal. So right now I'm just kind of pulling this up. I want to make sure I get these air pockets out. I don't want no air pockets in my clay. So I'm just gonna trim this up. Get rid of my extra clay that I'm not going to use. This is Cernit translucent clay. There we go. And I like to leave my paper on for a little bit before I get it wet. So you want to burnish it. Make sure the paper's on there well. And then I'll let that go. And then I am going to do this one. And then that one. All right, so I'll let this sit for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna go get water in my bottle, and then we will get this whole project started. Our next step is going to be putting our water on. So I just use a spray bottle, but I also have a bowl of water here because you're going to want to take off all that little extra bit of paper, and I'm going to show you. So let me put this one off to the side. Right here. I'm going to pull this one closer to me, and then I am just going to start squirting it with water. As you start squirting it with water, you'll see that it turns like wet toilet paper, and then you know that then you know that the paper is starting to dissolve. If you are interested in getting any of these papers, Love and Light Gallery is still doing the 20% off using my name. So I would jump on and grab the papers if you want them, so you get that 20% off. Trying not to make a mess here. It's better to do this in my kitchen, but I don't have a setup to record in my kitchen. All right, you want to make sure your piece is completely wet. Don't miss anything. And then let it sit there for a few minutes and you'll start seeing, you see that? That means it's all starting to dissolve. And you'll rub your hand, like rub your finger, and you'll be able to feel that little bit of extra paper on there. And then you'll be able to feel where the real clay is. So that is a nice little thing of being able to tell the difference. Another way to see that I could tell if it's ready is I'll go like that and you'll make like a mark in it. So I like to take my blade, and then I'll just start taking off most of the paper. And you will, yes, you will have paper still on there. That's okay. We're gonna get that off. But do you see all that comes off? Now when you're using your blade, don't do it hard. You want to glide it across nice and soft. This way you don't cut your paper or your clay, and you don't tear like the ink, because if you do it too hard, you will literally take the ink off. So you got to just be careful with that. So now I'm going to show you. You'll see there's like felt there. So now this is where you could do it in a bowl or under the sink. I'm going to do it in the bowl to show you guys. Now see, I actually tore my clay a little bit by taking it off, but put it under the water and then just rub your hand, rub your finger just slightly, and you will start to feel that paper come completely off. And you don't have to rub it hard, do it very lightly. This is just cold water. It's not hot, it's, you know, not ice cold. Now I just got to be careful because I did end up pulling that when I took it off my mat. When you're working with thin clay, you just got to be so careful. Okay. I am going to let that start to dry on its own. I can start to feel where the paper's still there slightly. And honestly, since it's so thin, this is the method that I'm going to use. I'm just going to use my finger. Because I wanted to show you guys the bowl, but doing it in the bowl, taking it off my mat, I just run the risk of tearing my clay. So I'm going to just be a little bit more gentle. And then there, all that extra comes off. And now I can feel that's clay. And carefully lift that up. I'm going to put it right back on here. I'm going to get my fingers wet with my bowl and just slowly put more water on there and rub my fingers in a circle. And then that will take off all the extra paper. You could use your little bottle. Probably be easier using the bottle. But you see, it's all coming off. So I'm going to do that with all 4 of them. And then I'm going to let them completely dry. And then when they're dry, we'll do the next step. Okay, so I noticed that some of my stuff was cut off because unfortunately I didn't have my thing zoomed out. So I'm just going to go over this again. What I am doing is I am squirting my piece and I am just rubbing my fingers over it. And that way I could take all that extra clay off. Or I don't know why I keep saying clay. All that extra paper. So see, all that extra paper comes right off. See, that was all extra paper there. I was putting it in the bowl, but because my pieces are so thin, lifting them up, I'm stretching them. I'm kind of doing a little tear, and I want to make sure I'm not going to do that with any of my stuff. So I'm just going to leave everything here, and then I'm just going to go around, and I'm going to feel, and I'm telling you guys, you'll be able to feel where the paper is. And you'll be able to tell the difference between paper and regular clay. Like here, I can feel there's still a little bit of paper. And I'm not worried about getting every little piece of paper off, but I'm a stickler with getting most of my paper off. I don't know why, I just am. So I want to make sure that I let my piece completely dry before I move it. That'll help it from not overly stretching like I did with this one. Luckily, I know I have to trim it, so I'm not too worried about it. But taking it off my mat the way I did, I kind of went a little bit too quick on it. But I am going to do these two. And then after everything is cleaned up and everything is dry, I will pop right back on, and then we will start the next step. My pieces are dry. You can see a couple little shiny areas, but we have a way to fix that. So what I want to do to fix that problem is get some baby powder. So if you didn't see my video on using transfer papers last month, you'll see now how I did it. So I like to get baby powder. Some people will use cornstarch. I don't like cornstarch. I don't know why. I just think it's too thick. So the baby powder to me works wonderful. So this is actually still slightly sticky. So to work with sticky transfer paper, you just put a little baby powder over it. And don't worry about the baby powder staying on, it won't. And you just go over it very lightly. And then you're able to move it, touch it, and you're not going to smear your ink. It just makes it so much more manageable. And you'll know right away if there's any areas that you missed. You'll see a shininess of it. So now this, I could touch, and I could pick up, and I could work with it. So now I want to get my jar. Make sure your jar is clean. And I want to lay it down exactly where I want it. So here you can see I initially did that little tear. I'm just going to kind of piece it back together. Then I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I will trim it exactly where I want it. I'm going to try my best to make sure I have a straight line. Don't pull. I'm doing the hardest one first because then everything else will go nice and smooth. This one I kind of ruined from lifting it up the way that I did. So I am just going to do the hardest one first. Get it over and done with. It's always best to get the hard stuff out of the way. If anything starts getting sticky, get more baby powder. And you'll see, because of the way I stretched it while it was still wet, it kind of got these little cracks. So do yourself a favor and just be very, very careful with it when you're moving it. All right, that looks beautiful, doesn't it? That wasn't too hard. So now I'm just going to clean that area up. We are going to edge everything, so don't worry about if it's perfect. Now I'm going to do this one. I'm actually going to use this one right away. Let's cut that off. Let's do this one, because that one's hanging over and it's just going to be in the way. All right. So, since that edge is already kind of cleaned up for me, that's the side I am going to use. So carefully take it off. Go slow with it. If you had thicker clay, you wouldn't have to be so careful. But because it's thin clay, you have to be a little bit more careful with it. And I need this closer to me. I want to line that up pretty close. I want the heads down at the bottom. Don't worry about making it perfect there. Like I said, we're going to be putting stuff around that area. I want that down a little bit more. See, I want my head not cut off. There we go. Be careful. Make sure no bubbles are underneath, because once you kind of get this down, lifting it up may become an issue. Oh, and just in case you're wondering, I got this particular jar from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to put some more baby powder on, and I'm going to rub my hand over to see if I feel any bubbles. And if I feel any bubbles, I'm going to just put a little dot in there to get the air out. Okay, we'll have another clean edge. You always want a clean edge. And this time I'm actually going to cut a little bit more, because I want more of the girl. She has all these beautiful flowers, so I don't want those cut off if I can avoid it. So I'm just going to kind of see. Let's get a little bit more. And I'm going to pull from the bottom, because if that part stretches, I'm not too worried about it, because that's the part that's going to be cut off anyway. Carefully lift. All right, so now I have to do this standing up, because I don't want to put my transfer paper on the table. So I am going to do this while it's facing up here. me get rid of that little section right there. Oops. And there we go. Push that over. Go straight down. It's actually easier with the blade than the X-Acto knife. And there we go. Look how beautiful. Gorgeous. Oh, look, I got a big air pocket right there. Let me push that air out, and I got one right here. So I'm just gonna push that right out. So put my hand in baby powder and feel. If you don't get the air out now, you're gonna have a huge bubble when you bake this piece. And that is not gonna look nice. So you wanna make sure all your air is out. Okay, so now you can see how wet it is here and where the very bright colors are. So that is where you really need to make sure you have your baby powder over it, because if you don't cover that up, all that ink is going to end up on your hand and you're going to end up destroying your piece. So just use the baby powder. And this little brush works wonderful for it. All right, so now this one's gonna be a little bit more trickier because we gotta have two straight edges. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of line it up with the jar. And I'm gonna go off of that. Make sure my piece is straight. And that's how I'm gonna do it. And then I'm going to carefully, oops, lift my piece up. I should have lifted them all up that way. Went a lot easier. And then line everything up. Right here, I need to just pull it slightly over. When you're pulling it, just be very careful so you don't put too much stretches into your pattern. And then, perfect. And like I said, I am going to edge all of this off. Look how beautiful. That one actually went down really smooth. That one worked out beautiful. I think lifting it up with the knife was honestly, or the blade, was probably my best option. So there, that's what we have so far. You see how that ink is all wet? See? That's what happens when you don't put the baby powder on. So I'm actually just going to throw this away, this little bit of section. I have enough clay that I'm not worried about saving it. So, all right, so to do my edges, I'm going to use my black clay. And I'm going to put this down to my fourth thickest, no, I lie. I'm going to put this down to my fourth thinnest setting on my pasta machine. Okay. Get all that air out of there. I'm going to take my thin cutters here. First, I am going to put some baby powder on because this cutter seems to stick to my clay. So I want to make sure it does not do that. All right, that should be plenty. And I always like to recut with my blade to give myself a good clean edge. Okay. And I'm going to go straight down the middle. Press down on it. It's very, very simple. This area has a slight overhang on it. And now I'm going to go around the bottom. I'm just going to follow my thing here. So I'm going to push that. I want it all to be even. Put a little curve in there. And all I'm going to do here is just smooth out my edges without touching my transfer paper. Because you can see that baby powder is now absorbing into the clay and it's going to be wet again. So you want to avoid touching your transfer paper. Oh, I'm so close to that. Can you believe that? It figures that I would be just a tad bit too short. I wonder if I could just stretch it just a tiny bit. Let me see if I could stretch it. Yes. And I'm just going to rub it and combine those two pieces of clay. Same thing there. Take that off. There we go. All right. Now we need to trim these edges up. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing on the very top. You can see I am getting my edge of my clay on the actual other clay because you need something to bind it to. And then I just need a small section here. Okay. So now I'm going to carefully start pushing it down. All the way around. Don't worry about smoothing anything out right now. Just push it down so it has good contact with your other clay. If it doesn't have good contact with your clay, it will come off. So that's why it's important to have that contact. And I can see I have bubbles right there. I am going to get my thing wet and then, or I'm going to put my baby powder on and then push that bubble out. Now we're going to run our finger over and smooth it. Get all that clay, those pieces right there, smoothed out and made into one. See, this first piece that I had, because I stretched it funny, I have bubbles. The rest, I do not. Stretch. There we go. So everything's nice and smooth. I am going to put a little design into it just to make it look, just to give it some more detail. I'm just going to straighten this out. I'm just going to take my little tool here. This is like my wax tip, and I am just going to make little marks in it. So let me show you. So I'm going to go around and just do little dots just to give it that little extra detail. All right, look at that, just that little detail. I think that looks lovely. So I'm going to do that on each one of my sides and around the top. All right, so I got all my little dots in, but for the top, I want to add a little extra. So I'm going to take the flat end of here, and then I'm just, no, I don't like that one. Hold on, let me get my flat edge. Where's my flat? Oh, I could just use my knife. So I'm going to use my X-Acto knife, and I'm just going to put little lines in between each one. And it just gives it that little extra touch of detail. I'm always about adding detail to my pieces and making them just a little bit more special. Plus, by doing this, it gives your piece, like that piece of clay there, a chance to be pushed down onto the clay. There we go. So here is our piece. So now I want to look over this and really make sure I have no bubbles in there. But look how beautiful that looks, just that little bit of detail. So this piece is perfect. This is the only one I'm concerned about because that was the one that I initially messed up on. So I just want to put a little bit more baby powder over it so I could just feel it. I see right there, I could feel a bubble. And if I don't get that air out, it's trapped in there and then you get blistering. So I want to do my best to make sure I have no blistering going on underneath. I think I got them all. So if I'm lucky, I got them all. Just gonna take that baby powder off my black. I'm gonna straighten my clay out there, like right here. All right, so when I bake my piece, I'm gonna bake it just like that. That way I don't run the chance of mushing my clay on the bottom. I'm going to place this in my oven, 275, and then when it's completely cooled off, we'll come back and glaze it, finish it up, and we will be done. Here it is. Look how gorgeous this is. Everyone came out fabulous. No bubbles on anything. It's just wonderful. Even the one that was stretched looks beautiful. I'm so pleased with this. So the last thing to do is put on our gloss glaze, and that's going to make all our colors pop. So I'm just going to put it directly right on once I open it. This right here, this gloss, will make everything shine beautiful. I'm going to go over, make sure I got my bottom completely covered. And my sides and my tops. I love this jar. I think this is fabulous. So now I'm going to see if I can find my little tea lights and see what it looks like lit up. I love the idea to be able to do like either light up, or you could make this into like just a little change jar. You could use it for a number of different things, but I want to see what it looks like lit up. Okay, so I have probably the cheapest little lights you could think of, which I don't know how well that's going to work. I'm going to turn off these lights and just stick that in there. Let me turn off my last light. Oh, guys, wait till you see this. Look at that. Even as a cheap little light, I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way and put it in the middle. Look at how that lights up. Is that not beautiful? Very cool. I am super happy with this. I absolutely love this paper. And look at that beautiful shine on there. Everything just looks so gorgeous. So I really hope that you guys enjoy creating this piece with me. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you all next time. Bye.